Oh, Loy's here, that's all we need.
So we've got another cameraman who's
Yeah, well, it's very important. Everyone wants more planes, and I think it's good to see people wanting to invest in New Zealand, give Kiwis more options through investment and competition.
Is it not to provide more ways for all of those Kiwis who are leaving to go to Australia just to get to Australia?
No, I think you'll find the overwhelming travel is actually within New Zealand, and having more options, especially for more remote parts of New Zealand, for people to be able to get around, hugely positive. It's actually a vote of confidence. Some people worry about overseas investment. I say every time a foreign company says we're going to make a bet on doing business in New Zealand, it's actually a vote of confidence.
Can I talk to you about Tākuta Ferris? Have you seen Tākuta Ferris's video?
I've seen reports of it. I think what it shows is that they're no longer the Maori party. They don't represent Maori. They're increasingly a kind of fringe group with some pretty odd views. And I suspect over time you will see people in the Maori world turning away from them because that doesn't represent Maori. That's just one nutty guy who claims to represent Maori.
Did he look drunk? Do you think he was drunk?
Oh, look, I mean, there's been a problem with too many cones in New Zealand for a long time, and I suspect it's not just orange cones. I think possibly he's had some too.
Do you think that he was under the influence of marijuana?
No, I'm just kidding with you.
Okay.
Can I ask about spending? I've got asked all the public sector, including Crown agencies, how much they spend on consultants for restructuring, and I found it was about 4.5 million over the last year. Are you comfortable with that amount? I mean, is that something that you think that public sector and departments need consultants to do their restructures? Aren't they the best people to do this?
Well, the problem is our labour laws are too complicated, and that's why Brooke van Velden is simplifying them. The fact is that people right across New Zealand, small businesses, big businesses and government agencies have real trouble restructuring and trying to move people on when actually they're no longer contributing to the organisation. That's a cost that everybody pays. So I just make the point that they've got to follow the law, they've got to get people to help follow complex labour laws, but also Brooke van Velden is simplifying them.
Is there any sort of argument that we should be just having these people within, for example, the Public Service Commission, experts in restructuring that we can deploy? I mean, because we're spending a lot on it.
There'll always be an argument. Should you get people to do the job in-house and take on all the costs of employing them permanently, or should you get someone in to quickly do a job which will actually be costing less money? And particularly when you're trying to reduce the massive bloat in the bureaucracy that happened under Labor, it'd kind of be ironic to hire more full-time people to try and reduce the size of the bureaucracy.
What do you think about the $44,000 cost of the flight that Prime Ministers Albanese and Luxon took on the helicopter?
Well, on the specifics of the helicopter ride, that's something that Chris Luxon, the Prime Minister, is going to address. I wasn't involved in that trip or the planning of it, so I don't really have any insight to offer. But I just make the point, for a long time, our local government minister was also our foreign affairs minister. She almost never went overseas. This government, people like Chris Luxon, Winston Peters, Todd McLeay, Judith Collins have spent a lot of time trying to rebuild New Zealand's connections with the world, and that, I believe, is worth doing. Whether people want to weigh in on this particular helicopter ride, that's something that the Prime Minister himself is going to address.
You're a government of low cost, so do you think that was a valuable use of money?
Well, again, because I haven't been involved in this particular issue, and I know that it also involves another country and another country's Prime Minister, that's going to be addressed by Christopher Luxon rather than me.
Minister, you're trying to attract investment to New Zealand as a government. Is it helpful to have front page of the Herald talking about nationalising power companies this morning based on an Associate Energy Minister talking about that?
Well, look, I completely support freedom of the press, so you won't catch me telling the Herald what they can and can't put on their front page.
What about what your Associate Energy Minister says under the title of Associate Energy Minister about how open he is to nationalising power companies?
Well, again, he's got a right to talk about different policy options, but I just make the point that he gave a whole spectrum of options. Everyone zeroed in on that one. If you want my view, what we need is better investment and more generators being built in New Zealand. If you want more generators built, it doesn't help to have a government saying, oh, nice generator you got there, shame if anything happened to it, the government might nationalise it. That does real damage to investor confidence. I'll give you just a tiny example of that. I was at a farm last week I was talking to a chicken farmer who's got a lot of chickens, and the thing about chickens is you need a lot of energy to keep them warm when they're young. Now this farmer, he's saying, look, I could actually save a lot of money and carbon emissions if I use less gas for heating, put solar panels on my roof. I said, really, how much did that cost? He said, $200,000. I said, gee, that's a lot of solar panels. He said, yeah, and it would make sense for me to do it, but I'm worried that government policy in the future might change and I might not be able to get my money back on my solar panels, so I'm not doing it. Now that's just one guy with a bunch of chickens trying to keep his chicks warm, and he is worried about changes in government policy. Imagine that all through the industry, big generators thinking about investing. What they need is certainty.
So was it
you're-
unhelpful, Shane, to say that? Is that what you're saying? It was unhelpful.
No, I'm just saying that you can have your speculation and you can talk about what you think might be a good idea, but generally having stable policy over time is important, and that's one of the things I think ACT brings to this government.
I think the proposal to nationalise was a serious one.
Well, look, there's no support for anything like that in any government that ACT's part of. It's that simple.
But is concerned by Stuart Nash's definition of a woman? Have you seen that?
Look, I raised the questions that led to his resignation last time, and it seems he hasn't learnt much.
Should he not run as an MP? I mean, he's maybe running for New Zealand.
Well, he's free. He's free to run as an MP, but personally, I just think it's distasteful. I mean, man, if I said that, you guys would be going nuts for weeks, and yet somehow he thinks that it's okay for him to lower the tone of discussion. I just don't really think it belongs in our political discourse. But we have some big problems in this country, and that sort of thing just doesn't help.
Minister, your early child care education reforms are before Select Committee. There was some strong discussion today from Dr. Mike Bedford saying how the current system is quite ripe for corruption, and just raising concerns about the system you're trying to set up with the director. They could kind of be bought off because there is so much money to be made in early childcare. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, look, first of all, that if you take those comments seriously, and I don't think they should be taken seriously, then that's possible now. You've got 12 different regional departments. They have huge powers to regulate. There's no law that stipulates the purpose of regulating, that protects the regulated parties, and there's no statutory office holder who the buck stops with. Well, if you're worried about his concerns, then everything we're doing is going to make it less likely that someone would buy off a regulator, because the law states what the purpose of regulation is. There's one person that the buck stops with nationally, and we've got a new graduated scheme where we don't just shut people down if they don't meet the licensing criteria. So look, I would say I don't think that New Zealand officials are corrupt the way he's proposing. I think that's quite gross to say that. But if they were, then what I'm doing would be making it a lot better.
You kind of meant more how there's so much money to be made by the centres because you just pack lots of kids in and sort of drive down the standards. Is that sort of, what's your view on that and how it's operating
Well,
now?
again, I mean, I don't know much about this guy. I think I've heard of him. I don't know what his perspective or knowledge is. But he's missing a really critical component of the whole industry, which is the parents, who are paying about half the fees and are incredibly focused on the student-teacher ratios and the conditions where they're dropping off their really small and beloved children for sometimes a whole day at a time. So, you know, the idea that you make more money just by treating children badly, parents aren't going to stand by that. It's like he's ignoring the role of parents in this whole thing.
He also raised how, I presume he's meaning the Wrights family, but how one group of people earned over 100 million through childcare, presumably with Best Start. I mean, what do you make of that? Because that's essentially off government subsidies. Do you think people should be able to make that level of money off government subsidies?
Well, look, I haven't seen their accounts, and so when you say they've made that much money, I think one thing that's really important to notice is if you visit early childhood centres, as I do, and you visit a lot of schools, as I do, the government has paid a vast amount of money to build schools up and down this country. The maintenance of those schools is a constant nightmare. I mean, I've got a school in Epsom that's like literally sliding down a hill into a valley. And so, these are real problems, right? You go to the early childhood sector, almost entirely built by private money, maintained by private money. And generally speaking, those ECE buildings are nicer, more hygienic, better maintained. So yes, people may be making money out of it, but they're also investing a lot to get there. And at the end of the day, from a taxpayer's point of view, it can cost more for the government to own and maintain the buildings, and if they don't do it very well, then the students pay by being in rotten, leaky buildings. So, I think you've got to take a bit more holistic approach to the whole thing. Yeah. Right, thank you guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.